Folks, welcome again. It's another segment with P.P. Simmons News and Ministry Network. It's January the 9th. I'm here with Kent Hovind of Creation Today. And Eric has been kind enough to sit down with us today and discuss some things from the past, specifically involving his father and some of his ministry endeavors and then his current situation. And we know that this, can be kind of a touchy subject, obviously, but Eric, very much appreciate your willingness to do this and just to kind of get some things out and answer some questions for some folks. We get comments and questions concerning your dad through the P.P. Simmons ministry quite often because of the similarity in some of the topics that we get into, specifically with evolution and creation. So we just want to kind of let people know what's going on, maybe dispel some myths. There's
myths out there? What?
Yes, there are. Maybe dispel some myths, let people know what's going on, and just kind of maybe clear the picture up on on what happened and where things are today. So appreciate the opportunity very much.
Well, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just first of all, for people that may have never heard of Kent Hovind and his work and who he was, just tell us a little bit about him. The ministries that he started and kind of what he did.
Well, my dad, amazing guy. I love my dad, and I pray that everything I do would honor my dad, as the Bible commands. He got saved at 16 years old in high school. Immediately after, realized I want to tell more people about this. After he led his first soul to Christ at the age of 16 years old, after he had been saved, well, God did, but after he literally, dealt with them and they accepted Christ, he knelt down. He said, "God, can I do this the rest of my life?" And that's literally what he's done. He has spent his life investing in other people and witnessing to other people. And I don't know how many are going to be in heaven, because of my dad's life. And he's not keeping track, or it's all for the glory of God. But he has literally spent his life since he was 16 years old doing that and trying to invest in kingdom work. Yeah. He said all the time, "Eric, we don't need to build a mansion here. We need to win a war."
Yeah,
let's lay up treasures in heaven. So that's certainly what he's done. In 1989, we moved. He was a high school principal, a science teacher, a pastor. He ran everything he did. It was he's just got something about him, man. It just makes people want to listen. They want to hear him. In 1989, we moved from California here to Florida, and it began Creation Science Evangelism. Actually, my brother Kent came up with that name. He said, "Hey, it's creation, it's science, and you're evangelizing." So Creation Science Evangelism, which is now known all over the place. And he did a couple of unique things. He said, "God, I'll do this, but number one, I don't want to copyright my videos. I want to get them out there for free so everybody can listen to them." And it wasn't the digital age back then. This was when you could make some money off of, the old cassette tapes and the VHS tapes. And he said, "I don't want to copyright them. Let people copy them and give them away." And that was pretty huge. And then he said, "God, I don't want to charge for my meetings. I just want to go and I just want you to provide." And man, God really did. And so God used my dad in a variety of ways. And my dad had lots of visions and lots of things to do. Eventually started Dinosaur Adventureland, which was a science center / theme park type thing / museum, kind of all combined into one that kids love to come to. And really became well known for his debates, taking on evolutionists, going out, and he got really good at debating.
Yes.
He got traveling and speaking. He was traveling and speaking over as far as between radio and all the different talks he did on a weekend. He would do over 900 talks a year. So he was incredibly busy with his schedule, and really learned from the late Dr. Henry Morris from Institute for Creation Research, which kind of pioneered the whole creation movement, and others, and just said, "I want to popularize this. I want people to know we've got the truth." So brought it down to 4th grade level. People could understand the science, and God had used him and still uses his videotapes. We still get emails and testimonies and still get all that. So still using that today. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. You and I were having some conversation earlier. And I remember as a kid, when you guys first came here, my dad and your dad met.
That's right.
And kind of hit it off, had a lot of the same ideas. And I remember your dad coming and speaking at Hickory Hammock Church in the old sanctuary, sat 100 people, But I remember that. I was, I don't know, I mean, 89, 12 years old.
Yeah, that's back when we were still looking at the girls,
yeah,
man. It's
exactly.
Hello.
So, but no, I mean, I remember that, and I can remember some of the analogies and some of the things that your dad said even that night, and it was so simple to understand. I mean, here I was probably 6th, 7th grade, somewhere around in there, and I remember that, and I also know that his teachings and some of the stands that he took influenced my dad in his early ministry and in getting involved in the creation-evolution debate, and look where that's gone today.
Oh, man, here I thought it was going to be over.
Yeah.
I thought, man, all right, evolution ain't going to last long at this rate, and it's big.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest debates going on right now.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, no doubt about it, no doubt. Well, I know that he was involved, I mean, you can get on YouTube, and I can find videos and projects that he was involved in, just all over the place.
Yeah.
And not only evolution, but he was involved in some end times prophecy stuff. He was one of he was one of the, not one of the first, but to very publicly start questioning the pre-tribulation movement and some of those theories on prophecy in the end times. So I mean, he had an amazing effect in the Christian world, in his own right. And I believe he was one of the first guys to really push the creation evolution debate to the level that it has now gotten to
a popularizing level of no doubt about it. He was out there. I mean, there were several guys that were doing that, but he certainly had he was just all over the place. God
I remember
used
some
him.
of his. He would publicly offer to debate anyone. I think it was like a $10,000 or something like that at the time.
He did. He said, "Hey, I will get." It started off at $10,000. He said, "I will give $10,000 to anybody that can give me scientific evidence of evolution, empirical evidence, not." And then he would define it. Now, here's what evolution is. There's 6 types. I'm not talking microevolution, variations within kind. I'm talking one kind of animal to another kind of animal.
Right.
And of course, never got taken up. Then a millionaire friend said, "Hey, let's up it to $250,000." So he said, "All right," and started advertising that $250,000 reward. Anybody with scientific evidence of Darwinian evolution, that one kind evolved into another. And there isn't any. You know what we get here's what would happen all the time, emails. What bank's it in? Show me the money. Where is it at? I remember after my dad, by the way, my dad's in prison. That's what we're going to be talking about. But after my dad went to prison, I remember doing a debate out in California. And I was supposed to debate a gentleman. And he said, "You have to bring the money with you to the debate." I'm like, "You think I'm an idiot?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean, man? You can't bring your evidence?" And people say all the time, I can't just bring a spectrometer and a micro, and they go off on all these things that they need to try to prove it. And it's like, guys, where's your evidence?
Yeah.
All they have is excuse. They got evidence of a lot of excuses. They don't have a lot of evidence.
They don't have evidence.
Yeah,
let's just say he never had to write a check, right?
No checks have been written. Nobody won.
I love it. Well, you obviously just said the $1 million phrase there. Your dad is currently in prison.
Yep.
And that's kind of, one of the main reason of us going on to this subject and to kind of clear up why he's there and like I say, some myths and some fallacies that are out there. So just give us a factual history. What happened? Why is he there? And how long has he been there?
My dad has always been incredibly outspoken about anything he has convictions on. He's the kind of guy that says, if I see a dog when I'm walking by, I'm going to kick it. As far as when he's, not literally, but there's another one the evolutionists are going to use. Great. Okay. While he, and that's the way his seminars always have been, man, he's plowing ahead here, but boy, there are so many little bunny trails going off, and people appreciate that. That's why I have ADD now. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. But he's just always kicking dogs as he walks by, and so he really kicked this whole, what's the proper role of government? Should the IRS be here? Should we have the income system the tax system the way it is? And was very outspoken about that. And now I can't verify this, but it's been told to me that somebody took one of his tapes, sent it to the IRS, and said, "This guy is a tax protester," and that's what actually kind of started a whole investigation on Kent Hovind. He had set things up as you used to, and this is where, from my understanding, okay, this is kind of what I was told, that you could set things up under corporation souls They're legal entities. You're allowed to do them, but people were using them as tax shelters and scams instead of legitimate ministry uses. And so he set up as a corporation sole, and the IRS began cracking down on those. And anyway, at the end of the day, that's what he got kind of caught up in. Is they looked at this as a scam. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, right. This guy, this ministry is bringing in all this money, and he claims not to have any income, and he was a dependent of the ministry, but he claims not to have any income. The income, the ministry provides his needs. Yeah, right. We know what happens when that happens. You get gold-plated, toilets and Lear jets, and
right.
Well, there were no Lear jets, and
let's be clear on that. That's
no
right.
gold-plated toilets. There was a van that had 200 and some thousand miles on it. His prized possession was a scooter, a scooter that he loved driving around on. But the ministry was right there in his house. It was the bottom line is he literally dedicated everything. He said, God, I'm yours. Do with me as you will. And God used that. God used his life. So the secular world, I don't think they even understand. Why would you do that? Mm-hmm. You mean, why wouldn't you get all the money you can out of that ministry? Look, it's for the furthering of the gospel. This is what I'm not about this world. I'm about the next one to come.
Yeah.
And, so many people, it's amazing to me how many people will talk about either my mom or my dad in such crude and rude ways. And I'm going, you got no clue.
Right.
You got no clue. We didn't have health insurance.
Yeah.
We didn't have health insurance.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, you break an arm, you might get to go to the doctor, but, short of that, suck it up, son. A
couple of sticks and an ace band to wrap it up.
Seriously, man.
Take some Advil.
My dad wasn't for this world. He was for the next one, and so he did a lot of traveling, a lot of speaking. Got upgraded to first class eventually, as he because his sky miles were so high, they'd upgrade him. So hey, that was a plus.
Yeah.
But didn't charge for his meetings. Went all over the place. Literally gave his life for the furthering of creation and the gospel. That's really what he wanted his life to be about. More than, I know that we're caught up in this whole IRS battle. Oh, and that's what happened is the IRS came after him and has got a grand jury to indict him. I think it was like the fourth grand jury. They several grand juries, because we found out about it. We submitted affidavits of his, and so they, after reading the affidavit, they're like, no, we're not going to indict this guy. So that happened a couple times. Well, then they held a secret grand jury. This is, again, my understanding. I could be wrong about this. My understanding is they held a closed grand jury where no witnesses could come. Just they presented their information. It's been said you can indict a ham sandwich, and it's probably true. And anyway, they indicted my dad, and that's what led to the whole trial. And at the trial, well, anyway, let me back up before I get to the trial. My dad doesn't want his life to be about a legal battle.
Yes, yeah.
It is that right now. If you ask my dad, I think he would say, "That's right. As soon as I win, I can go. I can go back to
go back to doing what I do." Huh?
So I go, Dad, put it away. Forget it. Who cares? This world is going to burn. This world is not our home. Let the legal system do what they want. Let's keep preaching the gospel. And he's done that consistently throughout. He's led over 400 men to Christ while he's been in prison so far. So he's doing it. But he was indicted on 3 charges: failure to withhold and pay employee-related taxes, structuring cash transactions, and then threatening the IRS and impeding the IRS investigation. So number 1 was failure to withhold, and that is he didn't consider anybody there an employee. He considered everybody a missionary. Mm-hmm. When they came on, he said, look, you're a missionary. I'm going to pay you money. You're responsible to pay taxes. You're responsible for anything like that. Well, looking back, that probably wasn't the wisest decision. I don't do it that way. I use an employee leasing service, so that's as far away from our ministry as we can get. But that's the way he had it structured. That's the way he was told to do it, and that's what he did.
Right.
The structuring cash transactions, they would go withdraw money from the bank and pay the people. And eventually, by 2002 or so, it was so much money that they said, forget this, we need to write checks. So they started writing checks to people instead of just withdrawing cash. And, in the government side, they look at that as, well, why are you paying in cash? What are you hiding? And
because cash is evil.
You're right. And he's going, these are college students that need money, I'm paying them. So anyway, they didn't exactly see it that way. So they was found guilty of that, and then impeding the IRS. And I'm not sure what else on there, but my dad has consistently said that was for praying that God would smite the IRS on the radio. And I can't verify that one either. I don't know if that's the real, intent behind that, but that's what I've come to understand.
Right.
So those three, anyway, the defense that my dad hired, it's looking back, probably wasn't very wise. They were doing what they did, or even the people that he chose. But they said, listen, they haven't even made their case. You don't need to put on a defense at all. So he and my mom did not put on a defense. Mm-hmm. And so the grand jury, or the jury over the case, went out and a couple hours later came back and said guilty on the three different charges on all counts.
Right.
So and then the judge said, hey, normally this would be 5 years. I'm going to take all these and do 5 and then add 5 on top of that for this count, and so give him a 10-year prison sentence.
Right. And when did that sentence start? Started
in, let's see, he went after he was found guilty, so that would have been November of 2006. November 2006 is when that happened.
Right. So at this point, we're basically looking at almost another 3 years that's left on that sentence. 2 years and some months.
In federal time, you serve 85% right now.
Okay.
So that would put it at August of 2015.
Okay.
Now, there's something going on. He applied for and got home confinement, where he gets to go home, but he has to stay home under home confinement for 6 months. So that'll start February of 2015. And then he could get 6 months of halfway house here in Pensacola to be rehabilitated into society, and that would take it to August of 2014. So don't know what's going to happen there, but those are the possibilities. There's another possibility. Every year for several years now, there's been a Judiciary Committee in the Senate, I believe, Senate Judiciary Committee, that has considered cutting prison time for first-time nonviolent offenders from 85%, and it's cutting it down a little bit more. But anyway, at the rate it would cut it down, if this is passed, it would send him home immediately because he's already passed that limit. So if they pass that, from what I understand, they could be voting on it this month. If it passes that, then it could go somewhere. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you kind of setting the record straight with the facts on what he was actually in prison for, because of a lot of what you hear when his name comes up, and obviously you're his son, I'm sure that you know this. Oh, that's the guy that talks about evolution and he was a tax cheat.
Yeah, a tax cheat, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you said that the way people speak about your parents in derogatory, manner. And I did a lot of looking into his background and what he was sent to prison for. And that's one of the first things that I found. He was not convicted of being a tax cheat.
That's right.
And the actual crime that he was that he was convicted of, structuring cash.
Yeah.
Basically, if you or I took our paycheck, deposited it into a bank every week, and then withdrew it all out, conceivably could be convicted of the same crime.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a scary thought in the world that we live in.
It's a very, very, there's no question they've used that law that, from my understanding, was originally developed to catch drug dealers that were going from bank to bank to bank, depositing small sums of cash, or making withdrawals and using that to kind of launder their money.
Right.
That's why these laws were written, to catch people in that kind of activity. And here my mom and dad went to one bank, to one teller at one bank. I mean, and the teller said, the IRS has got a flag on your account. They're watching it. And they said, yeah, we know. I mean, there's not a lot we can do about it. Yeah, we know they're watching it.
So he wasn't hiding anything, obviously. You said he was one of the most bold, in-your-face people out there. So
yeah, he was, yeah.
Yeah. That's
interesting. Yeah, that is a misconception.
Yeah.
And no, all you atheists out there, I was not homeschooled. I was at the when his dad taught him science, he didn't,
Yeah.
When I was at the atheist rally in Washington, D.C., the Reason Rally, largest gathering they've ever had of atheists in the history of the universe. And one of the guys interviewing me there, he's an atheist. Oh, come here, and who's your high school science teacher? And he's waiting for me to say my dad. And I'm like, well, I had a lot of them. I mean, who do you want? Which one do you want?
Which grade?
Which grade? Yeah. And he goes, your dad wasn't your high school science teacher? I said, no. Oh, you were you homeschooled? I was like, no, I wasn't homeschooled. Oh, and they just, something on the internet is wrong. Why, my world is crazy now. I don't know what to think.
You mean a Google search gave bad results?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's funny.
Well, let me just ask the $1 million question,
All right.
because this is, speaking of internet rumors and misinformation, you can find people obviously that say the guy was a tax cheat, he broke all these laws, send him to jail, lock him up for the rest of his life. He was against the government.
Yeah.
Christians shouldn't be against the government. And then you go to the other side of the spectrum, and you have people that absolutely say 100% because of the stands he was taking, and because of the nature of his just kind of, listen, I'm not breaking the law and there's nothing you can do about it, stance, that he was made a target by the government. So just more of an opinion question more than anything. I mean, where do you stand on that? Was he a target, or did he make some bad decisions somewhere in the middle? What really went down?
Okay, a couple things on that. Do I think my dad made all the wise choices, the wisest choices? No.
Yeah.
I mean, who of us always make the wisest choices? So, no. Was he targeted specifically for his stance on taxes? Some people say, "Oh, it's because he's a creationist." Well, I'm a creationist,
Right.
I think obviously, yeah, there was a target on him for that. He was a voice out there. He was publicly saying, hey, I think taxes are voluntary. And so was he targeted? Ultimately, yeah, he was targeted. Just like they're going to target anybody for something like that. So ultimately, was he targeted? Yeah, I have no problem with that. Was it because he was serving God? I don't think it's because I don't think that was the intention of the targeting. So I don't think you can say this is a what's the word? He wasn't martyred for the sake of Christ, so to speak. This isn't over the gospel. Was the gospel affected? Of course. But this wasn't over the sake of preaching the gospel. We are still free to preach the gospel in this country, and I'm thankful for that. May not have that much longer. So by the way, use it. Some
Keep
of you
using
are sitting
it,
on your butt not doing anything. Get busy. Serve God. Tell somebody about God. Don't pause yet, but in a second, go get out of your room, go tell somebody.
And use it no matter wherever you are.
That's right, man.
Even if you're sitting in a prison cell. Lead 400 men to Christ.
Exactly right, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And what's interesting, kind of along those lines, you and I were talking again off camera, that our struggle, we sometimes forget, is not necessarily against, against flesh and blood, right?
That's exactly right.
It's not against the things of this world. So even though we can sit here and say, yeah, he was targeted probably, but it wasn't necessarily for his preaching of the gospel, but yet the powers that be, the powers of the air, not of this world,
from the big perspective,
did they use it to silence, or was it attempted, by used by Satan to silence him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's look at what's come on the other side of that. There's obviously negative things that have come of it, but like you said in the beginning, by his accounts, he's led 400 men to Christ in prison. So
his tapes are continuing to go out around the world. They are translated into 41 languages now, and it's amazing how many people are being reached with the truth.
Yeah,
God created the world. You're going to be accountable to that God one day. You better get ready for that day of accountability.
Right.
A day of reckoning really is coming, and that really is. That's the overarching thing is, okay, big picture here, we're all targets.
Yes.
You're a target. I'm a target. Your dad's a target. You guys feel it. We feel it. We are targets, and it's on a much bigger scale. So, yeah, certainly when it comes to targeting, we are all targeted, no doubt about it. My dad does things that frustrate me to death, to no end, and I don't agree with the way he did everything he did, and there's all kinds of stuff about that. But I love my dad. I want to honor my dad. I am willing to argue with my dad. I have cried with my dad. When I first started a 501c3 organization, my dad was like, you better not do that. And now my dad, in conversations recently, he's going, I can see why you did it, and okay, I might have to do something like that in the future.
Right.
So he's seeing, look, if I want to operate in this world, I gotta to bend a little bit there. So he's people are going to take that and they're going to be frustrated with me and him. I don't know what he'd say if you asked him what he thinks about that right now. But I can tell you what, don't think that was a private conversation, does him say. Yeah. I'm going to have to change the way I do things. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen when he gets out. I know he's got a lot of fire. I know I know he's probably going to tackle things that I don't want to tackle. So, we have two different ministries. Well, I have a ministry, and I'm sure when he gets out, he'll have, he'll have a ministry get started when he gets out. I think he's going to want to take on the world again, man. He's just that's his personality. Bring it on.
Well, and maybe that's the battle he was put here to fight.
Maybe.
And it may not seem conventional to you or I, but
if that's what God wants, go for it, man.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And if that's his conviction, then I wish him all the best in, in fighting those fights. So,
Love you, Dad. Have fun over there.
No. Well, let me ask you this. What, obviously going through that and having to live that and see your father fight those battles and then ultimately be in prison and then, taken out of your life on a daily basis for almost 10 years now. How has that affected, decisions you've made? You talked about that a little bit from a business standpoint and just your ministry and the battles that you've chosen to fight.
Whenever all this first happened, I said to try to debate or counter the information that's happened and the information that's out there would be kind of like me trying to blow against a hurricane. It would be absolutely pointless. So I decided, first of all, I prayed. Man, and I have spent so much time in prayer over God, give me wisdom what to do. I said, God, let me not just go out there and say, hey, oh God, I'm not my dad, that wasn't me. Let me just show that by being real, by being by just letting the ministry work that I do be an example of what I'm about. I want to be about the gospel. I want to be about speaking truth. I want to be about equipping believers to defend their faith, because most Christians can't defend their faith these days. Yeah, that's what I want to be about. And I think over the last 7.5 years, I think people see that. Look, this is different. It's grown me tremendously. I enjoyed being the kid who didn't have the responsibilities, who wasn't responsible for payroll, who wasn't responsible for fundraising, who wasn't responsible for traveling and speaking that much. I had it made, man. So it grew me. I had to grow up real quick. God has brought incredible guidance in my both my board of directors and in my leadership group of my advisory board of what decisions to make. And I'd say if you look at our ministry, we are friends with all the other creation ministries. We have made inroads that I never dreamed would happen. And it's humbling to think that this past summer, I got to be a speaker at the Answers in Genesis mega conference. That still boggles my mind that in a short couple of year period, that God would say, Eric, I want to bring you out of that, out of the kind of the mire of that whole situation, and just kind of say, look, this is where you're going. And I kind of always figured, well, people are just going to keep shoving me down in that mire, and people still try to do that, obviously. But I am thrilled with the partnerships, the relational partnerships, the ministry partnerships that God has brought to creation today, to say, let's go have an impact. Let's carry that on. I think this has multiplied it. We've gotten letters from over 80 people that have said, since Kent went to prison, I decided somebody needed to fill those shoes. Many people needed to fill those shoes. And I started speaking on creation because of that. So I started going out and doing talks. And again, we want to be an equipping ministry. How can we help other creationists do what they do? Yeah. Other people speak. Start talking to a Sunday school class. Start teaching some kids. Start having some people over to the house and doing a small group curriculum or a Bible study on creation. Get busy. Do something. This is the crux. This is the very, very foundation of which way does your worldview go. It all starts right here with this subject of creation versus evolution. Yeah. So It's grown me. It's our ministry. I'm thrilled. We produce the Creation Today show. It's on 12 different networks worldwide. It's I'm really excited about what God has done with the ministry. And, there's huge opportunities in the future with the Genesis movie, with, partnerships and strategic partnerships. And I don't know what all God has in the future, but I'm glad He has the future.
Yeah.
And I just want to continue to day by day walk and do what He has. So it's been an exciting journey.
It's amazing. I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking and sharing this that, we don't know day by day what the next day holds.
Yeah.
And we don't always understand our circumstances and our surroundings and situations. Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking, again, I'm going back to what you said about, the 400 plus men that He's led to Christ in prison. And then, talking about how you liked being the kid that wasn't necessarily involved, but then you had to be. So, can we sit here and say it's a good thing that your dad went to prison? I don't think that we would ever say that, But on the other hand, we don't understand. In the past, we couldn't have understood, if this happens to Kent and then later on down the road, these things fall into place and happen, you may not be where you are today. You may not be involved in the ministry.
No
your life may have taken a totally different turn. So, we don't understand how God can use those things and work. And I think, too, there's some passages specifically relating to the end times about, for those that'll be, hauled off the prison or die by the sword, they'll go to prison or they'll die by the sword. So we're not in control, and we don't understand. And God can take a situation that seems hopeless and seamless, like you said, you thought you were always going to be pushed down, and then now look where you've come to. So, maybe that can be an encouragement to somebody that's listening to this.
Absolutely. Let God use you. If you literally beg God, I spend my life begging God, I want to love you. I want to love my family. I want to love others. And I just say, God, guide me all the time. You talk about a prayer that I pray probably 20 times a day. God, give me wisdom.
Yeah.
God, help me. God, help me. And I just continually want to seek His face and do His will. No, it's not the path I would have chosen. But I can tell you, right after he went in, right after, there was a peace. I know he's gone. This is the hardest thing he's ever gone through.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I do sense that, boy, he's kind of, there's times where he's all over the board. I don't know what he's going to, which direction is he going this week as far as when we communicate. And I'm looking forward to him getting out and kind of figuring out what he wants to do and getting some stability, because it's kind of frustrating right now. But right away, I knew, God has a plan here.
Right.
There is my testimony. I put it on DVD called God's Glory. Is all about finally understanding the sovereignty of God, the glory of God. It's all for His glory. And I could see right away, hey, God's getting glory out of this. I can see ways He's getting glory out of this.
Yeah.
So does God use pain and suffering to accomplish His will? Yeah, He can use pain and suffering to accomplish His will.
Yeah.
Can He use triumphs? Can He use victories to accomplish His will? Absolutely. God uses everything to accomplish His will, to His end, for His purposes.
And it's amazing, too. I'm sitting here thinking, we're talking about a man that hasn't had a public voice, so to speak, in 8 years now.
8 years, yeah.
But we can sit here and talk about how his tapes and his recording, his works are still going all over the world, maybe even to a larger extent because of the publicity. And again, we don't want to glorify any wrong decisions or his position now, but just pointing out the fact that we don't know how God's going to use us or use a situation that may look terrible and bleak to us.
Yeah.
But again, here's a man who has no public voice, but yet I can take you on the internet and I can show you his work that people are viewing, by the hundreds of thousands and millions every day. So,
and that's the thing, as my dad says all the time, man, I'm sure glad we made that decision with those tapes, because those tapes, there are
can you imagine if they weren't there?
All over the place.
Yeah.
And not copywriting them and saying, look, get them out there, share the message. That's what's most important. And that's why even the I know people want to know what's going on with Kent Hovind, and we got there's the Kent Hovind followers that, man, they're diehard, and it's like, don't follow a man, follow God. I'll tell you that right now. Don't follow a man, follow God. And I got the best dad in the whole world. Taught me so much stuff, so patient, never yelled at me once, slapped me one time, and it was because I back-talked my mom. And I my hand went across my face, and I went. He said, "Don't you ever talk to my wife that way." Loved his family, patient, a teacher, great childhood. Loved my dad. Amazing man as far as all the things that he's taught me. But don't follow a man. I don't follow a man. I don't follow my dad. I follow God. And same advice to you. Don't follow Kent Hovind. Don't be a Kent Hovindite. Be a disciple of Christ. That's what God has called us to. I know we get caught up in the what's going on, but the big picture is win souls.
Yeah.
If you're not out there winning souls, you've missed the boat. He that winneth souls is wise, is what Proverbs says.
And I have a feeling that your dad would probably give those same words of advice right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's what he's doing, obviously.
That's what he's doing.
Where he's at, so
yeah.
No doubt. Well, what's your communication with him like now? I mean, weekly, daily, monthly? I mean, obviously you can't just, go to the house and see him. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work for you?
They've moved him several times. It's his, I think, 13th move since he's been in prison. So 11, 12, 13, something like that. He's now in New Hampshire, Berlin, New Hampshire. It was negative 20 degrees up there, he told me. There's a prison email system. He's in the lowest security there is. It's called a camp, where you can go out, you can walk around, there's a track, there's no fence. I mean, it's almost funny to me. I mean, you think about it. It's like timeout. He's in timeout. You owe us a bunch of money, so we're going to put you in timeout. Literally, you go there. It's costing taxpayers $70,000 a year to keep my dad in timeout. That's what it's costing taxpayers to keep my dad in timeout.
And interestingly, in a place where he can't earn any money to pay the money he supposedly owes.
Exactly. There's no gates.
Whole other subject.
There's no fences around it. He could walk away if he wanted.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not going to do that. But there's no. I mean, there's lots of rules regulate. For all the things they do in prison. But he's in the lowest security one there is, and he's been reading on average, I think, 2 books a week.
Wow.
I mean. Now, I don't agree with everything he's reading, and that's part of our little, come on, what are you talking about? You think that? No way. So there's a little bit of that going on, but, he's investing his time in learning and writing, and he's got a new position on the end times that he can't wait to get out and tell everybody about. And
wow.
I'm like, Dad, nope, I'm not going to promote that for you. You do that on your own. I got no interest. I don't know. Hindsight's 20/20. Creation, I got it.
Yeah.
Revelation, I'll wait till it happens. I'll let your dad and my dad can get together on that whenever he gets out.
And I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. Believe me, I'm sure they will. He's in a camp. So they have an email system, and so we get to correspond via email, and then he gets 300 minutes per month of phone time. So if he's not on the phone trying to, talk to somebody about, the whatever appeal he's got going on now, he's always, that didn't work. Let me try this, and that didn't work. So he's always putting things in, and so he gets to call and talk to us and email. Of course, we can write letters. Going to visit him is hard, all the way up there in New Hampshire. But so I got to see him one time since he's been there in the last 16 months.
Wow.
And that was last August.
Yeah.
So he hasn't seen his grandkids in about 2 and 3 years, maybe 4 years.
Wow.
So
I can imagine that's, obviously, a strain for both sides there on that.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's tough. Well, you just...
I'll just throw in there, man. The prison system does not help families.
Yeah.
My dad says all the time, and I can see why he says this. This is why God never instituted prison as a punishment. It's either you pay back money, you're beaten, or you're killed.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 options in Scripture. Prisons ruin families. They cost the taxpayers, they cost society, and they ruin families.
Yeah.
In whose world is this a good idea? Yeah. This doesn't make sense. So he's, and I'm not a prison, I don't know what to do about prison reform. I'm not smart enough to do that. But I can certainly understand why they don't, now from this perspective, why they're not biblical.
Right.
From that perspective. So it's certainly not good on families, not good on relationships. Doesn't help. That's
an interesting perspective. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
no doubt. Well, what you kind of touched on this a little bit, but does he have a current appeal underway, or? or several appeals underway.
He has jumped from legal guru to legal guru to legal guru, trying to get this thing figured out. And the bottom line is, I mean, it's kind of like, well, the government can't let him win.
Right.
It's almost like it doesn't matter if he is right. They're not going to let him win. Yeah. So, I don't know. My opinion is Dad quit trying to fight that. His opinion is, when I'm dead. And I know people will disagree with what I just said about quitting the fight. No, that's why we love Kent Hovind. I know that's who he is.
Yes.
I'm going to try to go around the mountain and sneak up behind or something like that. I don't know. I just focus on a different mission. But that's who he is. Did God call him to this? I shouldn't have even asked that question, because I want to say, nope, he called him to creation. Didn't call him. But hey, what does God have? Here it is. I believe in the sovereignty of God. So
right. Only He and God can answer that question.
He and God can answer that question. Yeah. Is he in disobedience, or is he? I don't know. I've said, Dad, I leave that between you and God. Right. I got to do what God's called me to do. I'm not responsible for anybody other than me and my family, and the way I spend my time and energy and efforts here on earth. So.
Well, and you and I can talk about it, obviously, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not our decision to make. It's not our call.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if he's not, then he'll be held accountable for it, and if he is, then he'll be rewarded for it.
Then pray for him.
That's right. He's got a tough call.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, just in kind of wrapping up and closing, is there anything, any ways that people can possibly help out? I mean, is there? I hate to even go here because I don't know what the stand is, but any type of legal defense fund, obviously prayers and thoughts. What can folks that just are interested in Kent Hovind and want to see the best for him and his life and maybe future ministry, what can they do?
Number one, pray. If you want, pray. Number two, go win souls. This is nothing in light of eternity.
Yeah.
7 years of a guy in prison is nothing compared to eternity. He's written about it. There are people that serve way worse than what he's getting, that are treated with way more injustice. Go win souls. That's what matters. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ that's going to make a difference in this world and in the world to come. So pray. If you want to help my dad, pray. Number two, get off your rump. Go tell somebody. Take a tract, take a gospel tract, go get involved in evangelism. I tweeted this morning. A lot of people like the idea of evangelism. Very few people do it. Go do something. Get busy. There's all kinds of places that have stuff out there about my dad, and I don't have I stopped a legal defense fund for him. I said, Dad, I'm going to be done with that. I'm going to kind of wash my hands of that. So I don't collect a legal defense fund for him. I said, Dad, I'm going to invest my time and energy into spreading the gospel. We did that for several years as far as the legal defense fund. Fought. Went Supreme Court, didn't take the case. Said, okay, Dad, I got to be done with that. I can't spend any time on that. I got to focus on the other things that we're doing. So I don't collect a legal defense fund for him. There may be people out there doing that. I don't. I'm about the gospel. So I'm looking forward to him getting out, giving him a big old hug and telling him I love him, and keeping on ministering.
Sounds great. Eric, we appreciate your candidness and your openness on this subject. I'm sure it's not easy or fun to talk about, but like I say, there's a lot of people that honestly want to know.
Yeah.
And very much appreciate you being willing to sit down with us and talk about it. And best regards to your family and obviously your father. And he will be in our prayers for sure.
Well, Brandon, thank you very much.
Yes,
man.
sir.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. You and I were having some conversation earlier, and I remember as a kid, when you guys first came here, my dad and your dad met.
That's right.
And kind of hit it off, had a lot of the same ideas. And I remember your dad coming and speaking at Hickory Hammock Church in the old sanctuary, sat 100 people, But I remember that. I mean, I was, 89, 12 years old.
Yeah, that's back when we were still looking at the girls,
yeah,
man.
Exactly. So, but no, I remember that, and I can remember some of the analogies and some of the things that your dad said even that night, and it was so simple to understand. I mean, here I was probably 6th, 7th grade, somewhere around in there, and I remember that. And I also know that his teachings and some of the stands that he took influenced my dad in his early ministry and in getting involved in the creation evolution debate, and look where that's gone today.
Oh, man, here I thought it was going to be over.
Yeah,
I thought, man, all right, evolution ain't going to last long at this rate, and it's big.
Yeah,
it's one of the biggest debates going on right now.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Yeah, no doubt about it, no doubt. Well, I know that he was involved. I mean, you can get on YouTube, and I can find videos and projects that he was involved in, just all over the place.
Yeah.
And not only evolution, but he was involved in some end times prophecy stuff. He was one of one of the, not one of the first, but to very publicly start questioning the pre-tribulation movement and some of those theories on prophecy in the end times. So I mean, he had an amazing effect in the Christian world, in his own right. And I believe he was one of the first guys to really push the creation evolution debate to the level that it has now gotten to
a popularizing level of no doubt about it. He was out there. I mean, there were several guys that were doing that, but he certainly had he was just all over the place. God
I remember some of his. He would publicly offer to debate anyone. I think it was like a $10,000 or something like that at the time.
He did. He said, "Hey, I will get." It started off at $10,000. He said, "I will give $10,000 to anybody that can give me scientific evidence of evolution, empirical evidence, and then he would define it. Now, here's what evolution is. There's 6 types. I'm not talking microevolution, variations within kind. I'm talking one kind of animal to another kind of animal."
Right.
And of course, never got taken up. Then a millionaire friend said, "Hey, let's up it to $250,000." So he said, "All right," and started advertising that $250,000 reward. Anybody with scientific evidence of Darwinian evolution, that one kind evolved into another. And there isn't any. You know what we get here's what would happen all the time, emails. What bank's it in? Show me the money. Where is it at? I remember after my dad, by the way, my dad's in prison. I don't know.
Folks, welcome again. It's another segment with P.P. Simmons News and Ministry Network. It's January the 9th. I'm here with Eric Hovind of Creation Today. And Eric has been kind enough to sit down with us today and discuss some things from the past, specifically involving his father and some of his ministry endeavors and then his current situation. And we know that this, can be kind of a touchy subject, obviously, but Eric, very much appreciate your willingness to do this and just to kind of get some things out and answer some questions for some folks. We get comments and questions concerning your dad through the P.P. Simmons ministry quite often because of the similarity in some of the topics that we get into, specifically with evolution and creation. So we just want to kind of let people know what's going on, maybe dispel some myths. There's
myths out there? What?
Yes, there are. Maybe dispel some myths, let people know what's going on. And just kind of maybe clear the picture up on on what happened and where things are today. So appreciate the opportunity very much.
Well, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just first of all, for people that may have never heard of Kent Hovind and his work and who he was, just tell us a little bit about him. The ministries that he started and kind of what he did.
Well, my dad, amazing guy. I love my dad, and I pray that everything I do would honor my dad, as the Bible commands. Digital age back then. This was when you could make some money off of the old cassette tapes and the VHS tapes, and he said, "I don't want to copyright them. Let people copy them and give them away." And that was pretty huge. And then he said, "God, I don't want to charge for my meetings. I just want to go and I just want you to provide." And man, God really did. And so God used my dad in a variety of ways. And my dad had lots of visions and lots of things to do. Eventually started Dinosaur Adventureland, which was a science center / theme park type thing / museum, kind of all combined into one that kids love to come to, and really became well known for his debates, taking on evolutionists, going out and he got really good at debating.
Yes,
he got traveling and speaking. He was traveling and speaking over as far as between radio and all the different talks he did on a weekend. He would do over 900 talks a year. So he was incredibly busy with his schedule, and really, learned from the late Dr. Henry Morris from Institute for Creation Research, which kind of pioneered the whole creation movement. and others and just said, I want to popularize this. I want people to know we've got the truth. So brought it down to fourth grade level. People could understand the science, and God had used him and still uses his videotapes. We still get emails and testimonies and still get all that. So still using that today. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. You know,
he got saved at 16 years old in high school. Immediately after, realized, I want to tell more people about this. After he led his first soul to Christ at the age of 16 years old, after he had been saved, well, God did, but after he literally, dealt with them and they accepted Christ, he knelt down. He said, God, can I do this the rest of my life? And that's literally what he's done. He has spent his life investing in other people and witnessing to other people. And I don't know how many are going to be in heaven, because of my dad's life, and he's not keeping track, or it's all for the glory of God. But he has literally spent his life since he was 16 years old doing that and trying to invest in kingdom work. Yeah. He said all the time, Eric, we don't need to build a mansion here. We need to win a war.
Yeah.
Let's lay up treasures in heaven. So that's certainly what he's done. In 1989, we moved. He was a high school principal, a science teacher, a pastor. He ran everything he did. It was he's just got something about him, man. It just makes people want to listen. They want to hear him. In 1989, we moved from California here to Florida, and it began Creation Science Evangelism. Actually, my brother, Kent, came up with that name. He said, hey, it's creation, it's science, and you're evangelizing. So Creation Science Evangelism, which is now known all over the place. And he did a couple of unique things. He said, God, I'll do this, but number one, I don't want to copyright my videos. I want to get them out there for free so everybody can listen to them. And it wasn't the digital